Dandelion, you're a joy to my eyes. Dandelion, you're a joy to my eyes. Oh, your yellow and gold flies through the breeze. Far and wide you spread your seed.
From the mundane to the magic, and the humble to the harmonious, I'm now ready to share with the world the medicine that has inspired me to release old fears and patterns and realize my full potential, finding the full spectrum of peace and excitement and everything in between, and that it's available to me right now and in each and every moment as I walk my own unique path of wonderment in the world. This podcast will inspire, hopefully, not only my journey and my story, but also yours. Welcome to Dandelion Stories. I'm Emily Doe, sharing stories through this podcast and learning and growing as I go. Hello and welcome to this 7th episode of Dandelion Stories. In this episode, I am talking with Siobhan Fox about ADHD in women and about self-diagnosis for ADHD. And I felt compelled to record a little mini intro to this episode because it's something that's really important for me personally as a 44-year-old late self-diagnosed person with ADHD, and how it's really been such a massive influence throughout my life. And obviously this has been a self-reflection since probably November last year, when I really came to more fully realize how I have been affected my whole life by ADHD. And that's just not me personally, that's in my family circumstances as well. But really the reason why I wanted to record this little mini introduction today ahead of sharing the conversation with Siobhan is because it can be a really lonely place to end up. And it is so important to talk about it, to bring our fears and worries to the surface so that we don't feel the huge amount of shame that we can sometimes feel about not really understanding ourselves. And there's so many iterations of how that can manifest in a person. And I realised that actually October is the month for ADHD awareness. So it's perfect that this is airing this month. And I want to do my little part to help people to understand not only a little bit more about themselves potentially and really seeking out support, seeking out help, but also to say that this condition or this way of being has affected my life in huge ways. And I have not felt satisfaction in my life in many areas of my life. And I can probably attribute that to my ADHD traits. And I've been kind of holding back on wanting to share this episode, or wanted to even look at the edits for this episode, because of the fact that in my nature, I'm sometimes not as prepared as I like to be. I'm not as ordered and prepared. And so I find myself doing everything at the last minute, including setting up the call. And I didn't have the settings as I wanted them to be for our conversation. And that has affected the quality of the sound. But this conversation is so important. I'm going to just bring it to you anyway. I'm not going to try and fiddle with it too much or make it sound perfect. The fact of the matter is, my head's not in the right place at the moment with my focus, my hyper focus being on the writing of my book, my Dandelion story. And so I've also made a decision that I'm going to do a couple more episodes after this in this series of podcasts, and then I'm going to take a pause so that I can finish the first draft of my manuscript. I can go into that hyper focus that I so desperately want to go into for the book. And then once I'm done with that and it's off to publishers, of which I'm self-publishing this book, it's very much a gift to myself. I have spent a lot of my own money that other people may think, oh, you know, you should save that money. You should save it towards the deposit for a house or for a rainy day or maybe a new car. And no, I've decided to gift this to myself because I am rebirthing and I am reimagining my life right now through the magical powers of writing this book. And I am living for this book. So it's great accountability, by the way, paying for your publishing deal. Once I have published this book, I will come back to the podcast, or once it's off to the publishers and I've got some time, I'm going to revisit this podcast and I am going to really figure out the best technology and all of my processes so that I can create something for you guys that I'm really, really proud of. And you know what? I might get to it and think, nah, it's not for me. I'm a manifesting generator, so I might be onto something else by then. But I wanted to let you know that the way I am and the way that I be is normal for a lot of people. And I have got a lot of love to share and a lot of connection to explore with myself, with my creativity, and with a lot of other women who really truly inspire me. And Siobhan is one of those people. So I'm gonna go now, and I'm gonna let you listen to the conversation that I had with Siobhan about ADHD. Welcome, Siobhan. Thank you for being here on the Dandelion Stories podcast with me today. I think I met you online on LinkedIn probably kind of December or January time, going back. And I was particularly impressed, I think, by how you seem to kind of have it all together in terms of your business and the things that you have on offer. And it was actually an offer that you had at the time from your marketing company that kind of spoke to me. And then as I kind of started to look a little bit more into your profile, I realized that we had in common our self-diagnosis for ADHD. And so we got chatting, and earlier this year I actually appeared on your podcast, which is the Unconventional Business Podcast. So I just want to kind of give that a plug and say
Thanks.
And you are actually now an accredited ADHD coach as well. So yeah, just tell me a little bit about that before we get into a deeper conversation about neurodivergence.
Thank you for the lovely intro and the shout out. I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel like when we connected, it was just like it's quite common for ADHDers, but like a sort of instant shared something. Energy, I don't know. You just kind of know, like, oh, we're going to get on. So yeah, I definitely felt that when we connected. So yeah, I am based in Winchester in Hampshire, and run two businesses, Big Picture Business Coach, which is coaching ADHD business owners, and Reveal Marketing, which is marketing for what is fast becoming mostly neurodivergent folks. I live with my husband and my 6-year-old son and our two cats in the countryside, and yeah, figured out maybe 2020, 2021, started seeing content about ADHD, and me and a friend started sharing things with each other like, haha, this is us. And then at some point it was like, not haha, like, I think this is us. So yeah, the sort of chat out there is like people are self-diagnosing via TikTok, and it's kind of the wrong lens to put on it. Like people are becoming aware of how and why they're different because more information is being spread out there. So yeah, it's not a trend, it's an increase in awareness. So I'm here for it. I think it's great. It's nice to finally have an answer as to why I'm different.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and there's it's like there's so much more to discover and learn about yourself in that instant, right? But there's um there's an unmasking that goes on at the same time, I think, for me anyway, and that left me in what I have openly called, and I will talk about this in my book, um, the mulch. I felt like I was in the mulch, and then that's when I met you. I was in the mulch when I met you. And I would like to hear from your perspective, like, how was it for you? Like, when you discovered that, was there like, yeah, what was the process that you went through? What the emotions that came up?
The first thing I discovered was actually the highly sensitive personality type. My friend gave me a book, and I'd met someone at networking who introduced me to that idea. And reading that was like reading my user manual. I just cried my eyes out. It was like, oh, there's finally something here that explains me. Like I've always been driven to like personality tests and personality questionnaires, and I always come out as being like a bit of everything. Like nothing ever gave me an answer. I never fit into any of that stuff, and I've always felt like an outsider. I've always felt like a weirdo, like struggled socially, been socially awkward, just never felt like I fit anywhere. And so the highly sensitive person was like, oh my God, so that's why I do this. So that's why I feel like this. That's why I have 7 existential crises a day. Like it all makes sense. And then following on from that, ADHD was like the missing piece of the puzzle. It was like really making sense of my chaotic past and a lot of my destructive behaviours and struggles and all the things that come as a result of being misunderstood, like depression and anxiety and drinking too much and risky behaviour and getting into debt and poor choices and nearly getting fired from jobs and, you know, all of that stuff. It was like, oh, okay, so I'm not flawed as a person because you internalise that stuff. You just assume you're a rubbish person. It was like, yes, I'm still accountable for those things. I still take responsibility, but I understand there were greater forces at work. So for me, it was like a lot of relief, a lot of being able to let go of shame and just go, okay, so the Siobhan that got so drunk that she blacked out and woke up in hospital, she didn't understand what was going in her brain. She didn't understand that when people said, why don't you know your limit with alcohol? Like, I didn't. I couldn't. It was different on different days, and I was chasing dopamine. So I think once I was able to see my life as like one big long chase of dopamine, it was just this massive aha moment. And then, like you said, then since then has been a process of like accepting all that crappy behavior, accepting all those poor choices, giving myself grace, learning how to speak to myself kindly rather than beating myself up. And yeah, and unmasking and just walking around the planet, not pretending to be something I'm not, not doing small talk at the school gates. My son's in year 2 now. There are parents of kids in his year I have never spoken to. They probably all think I'm a miserable bitch. I don't care. I cannot be bothered. I have my safe people who also hate small talk. And, you know, I'm not trying to fit in anymore. I think I've found where I belong. And then you look around and you realise, oh, my life is actually full of neurodivergent folks who are all realizing this about themselves, or I'm now drawn to those people. So, yeah, I'm not trying to fit in anymore. I've just been able to find where I belong.
I think that's really interesting, and I think one of the things that I am realizing more, and I talk about this a lot with the people that are in my circles and my clients and things, that we're learning how to care for our energy. And actually, that I love the fact that there's this rise of consciousness around setting boundaries for yourself that work for you, and actually, yeah, boundaries, but also like we're not people pleasing as much anymore. And I think I was doing a lot of that people pleasing, and it was driving me more into a kind of confusion or a despair around, like, I don't even want to be your friend really necessarily, but I feel like I should, because I've got to put up this pretense that I'm this like bubbly, and I am bubbly when I want to be bubbly, but same as you, like not in the school playground. No, no thanks. I need to be somewhere. I need to do something else after that. And also, what I felt like was that all of a sudden I realised how much I'd been getting away with stuff. It's like I'd been getting away with stuff my entire life. Like I'd been literally winging everything my entire life. And it was like, but what came with that was like this, it's like a cover up. It was like I was constantly covering up, like where in jobs and things like that, when I was employed, like people would think I was great and I was really great at my job and I'm doing really amazing, amazing work. But for me, I was like, oh my God, I just scraped that through at the last minute. It was very much like
Yeah.
I was living in such an unhealthy place within my nervous system, because I was constantly in this like real fight or flight state of being. And I just realized now that it's not sustainable for me at all to be like that.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
that's the thing that comes with the realization, isn't it? Is once you can see it, you can't unsee it, and then all these unhealthy coping mechanism strategies you had before stop working because it's like the veil is lifted from your eyes, and you can't go back to old ways of people pleasing or trying to fit in, or it's not available to you anymore because you've been able to see it and you've been able to see the damage it's doing to you. And like, I'm 8.5 months sober now, and I just know I can never have a healthy relationship with alcohol, and I know how badly it affects me now, and some of that is getting older, being a mum, perimenopausal, all the other things, running businesses. But yeah, it. I think there's a grief moment, isn't there, when you're like, God, I wish someone had realised. I wish this had been picked up. The what ifing, I wish things could be. I think most people go through that, but then on the other side of that is like, once you reach acceptance, you can go, do you know what? I can make different choices now, and I can stop doing these behaviors and acting in these ways that damage me. And a big thing actually is learning to put yourself first, which is not like women of our generation. We're not That's not how we were brought up. The general message was you put others first at all times. All that conditioning of women, it all still exists. All those messages are still out there. So, yeah, it's quite a radical step when you realise, oh, if I put myself first and I take care of myself in healthy ways, I have more to give others. I'm actually a better functioning, happier person who can give more. But I think your point about energy is really important. The lovely Jo Geraldine, who I met on LinkedIn, who's been on my podcast, rather than serving people from a full cup, she talks about serving people from the overflow. And that's a big change that I've tried to make. It's not this like drain and refill cycle, but actually just keep yourself gently bubbling at the top all the time and serve people from your excess. And that's been a big shift for me. That's made a huge difference. Like you said, to my nervous system not being in fight or flight anymore, and just not having as many existential crises or periods of anxiety or depression, but just being able to be a more content, calmer human every day. Yeah, which is actually my definition of success, a calm nervous system.
I think that as women, particularly, we have we do have slightly more to overcome, and there is a shift happening in culture, in society. It's a cosmic shift that's also happening, which is supporting this coming back to realizing our innate cycles and rhythms and working with them. Um, and obviously, we've been living now for the last few hundred years under a very patriarchal system, which has us living by the 24-hour clock. And that's a very kind of masculine energy to be constantly in that. And I think that's where I've been kind of having this kind of like almost like this little tug of war within myself and within my business and the way that I operate and what I want to create in the world and everything, because I just haven't talked about this on the last podcast that came out, which was all about sort of slowing down and caring for your energy, because in order to get things done, we still live in this system which operates on this 24-hour clock. And yeah, being in the real world versus coming more into like, oh, I'm bleeding, so I'm just going to take the day off. Or it's a new moon and I'm feeling like I just need to rest and be in my creative space, and so I need to cancel some appointments. Like there's still, it's almost like we were brought up to made to feel icky for taking a rest day. We were made to feel like it was naughty in some way, or it was it was definitely shunned. It was like, no, you push on through. And I really want to kind of redefine that for myself, and I want to help to redefine that just generally in the collective as well, especially for women, because that's not how we're going to function at our best, right? We're not going to function at our best when we're pushing ourselves through and burning ourselves out.
Yeah, totally. I think in this capitalist world that we live in, rest is the ultimate rebellion. You know, to sit and go, yeah, I'm going to reschedule some stuff. I'm going to have a random day off. I'm going to nap in the day. I'm going to go garden for a day rather than sit and work on my laptop. Like there are lots of different types of rest: creative, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional. Like to step outside of the hamster wheel. I think, yeah, it's the ultimate act of rebellion. And I think that's how, especially a lot of the women that I know, are reclaiming their power. Is exactly, I saw that thing the other day about, yeah, the masculine cycle is 24 hours and ours is obviously monthly or 28 days. And yeah, like that's something I've had to tune into a lot more hitting perimenopause. Is I can't expect the same thing of myself every day, and I can't expect the same energy every week. It's different, and I have to move with it. And the moon last night. Been sleeping really well recently, and then last night I woke up at 3 and I was wide awake, and I was like, I know the lunar eclipse is literally happening right now. Like I should probably go look at it, but I can't be bothered. But I'm just going to sit here and be like, okay, well I can feel the energy anyway, so I'm just going to be awake for a bit. Like that stuff is real. Like people think that stuff is really woo, and it's not. Like when I go swimming in the river, there'll be a day where we'll meet and someone will go, God, I slept really badly last night, and someone else will go, yeah, me too. And someone else will say, me too, and I'll go, me too. It was a full moon, guys, and they're like, oh, every time. But yeah, I swim in the
Yeah,
river with a bunch of women, so there you go.
I did it on my birthday when I was invited to go cold water swimming on my birthday earlier this year, and it was amazing. I really did enjoy it. I don't know if it's something I'm going to take up on a regular basis. I don't know if I loved it that much, but I do love cold water as a form of therapy. Like we'll get into talking about it a little bit more later, but yeah, cold blasts at the end of every shower, I feel like it's a really good way to ground me. And actually, as I did my own meditation last night, I actually asked my gut what was going to be in support of helping me feel grounded every day, and it was that message that came through, like try to endure a little bit more cold water in your life.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get me started on that because I won't shut up about it. But yeah, I'm a
I just
proper cold water evangelist.
I just want to say that I tried to shift a couple of things out of my calendar to make sure that I didn't get bleeping going on from my
Oh,
computer.
okay.
I don't know if I've managed to do it. So just a little disclaimer that this new computer that I have, yeah, all kinds of little technical issues. And we're just not going to worry about it. We're going to glaze over. So yeah, if you do hear that on the recording, that's all good. So I would like to ask you a question around imposter syndrome and whether you feel that you suffer from it.
Yeah, I think it's a lot better now than it used to be. I've made it a much smaller character, a much smaller player in my internal orchestra. But it still hits. There's still a little gut punch of it, like every time a new client signs up, or every time I meet with a prospect, and that little voice is like, who the hell are you to be saying you can help this person? What do you know? That message will always be there, but I just kind of accept that it's there now and go, okay, yeah, thanks for that, but also like do one because I'm not listening to it. And I know that it's just born out of fear of, can I really help this person? And that comes from a place of because I care, because I want to do a good job. So a lot of it is, I think a lot of it with imposter syndrome and all the challenges that come with being a neurodivergent perimenopausal woman is just acceptance. It's just accepting that that voice will be there. Pretty much every ADHDer I've worked with has a raging, really bitchy, horrible inner critic. And the first thing we do is just acknowledge it's there and acknowledge that it's not them. Like your inner critic is basically an amalgamation of every crappy, horrible thing that any adult or peer or parent has ever said to you. It's only ever using the past as evidence. And, you can make different choices on any given day and surprise yourself with what you're capable of. But if you only ever listen to your inner critic, you'll never do anything. So a lot of it is just acknowledging it's there and acknowledging you have choices about how much you listen to it. So yeah, I still get it. I definitely had it when I started the business. Again, like my self esteem, I just had a mental breakdown. Like my self esteem was in the bin, and it was like, who are you? What knowledge do you have? Like, who's going to pay you for anything? But I felt the fear and did it anyway because I had such a drive to make a different life and to not go back to corporate and end up in the same burnout cycle. So
I've had the same thing happen recently with the step away from some of the projects that I was working on for the last 5 years or so, and kind of really rebirth in my identity, becoming a writer, and yeah, just it comes back to me spending some time connecting with my inner child, and like it's like, how does your inner child want to be treated? Yeah. And this realization that I've definitely been talking to myself in a quite an unkind way for a really, really, really long time. And when I think back to kind of what the small version of Emily wanted to create in the world, it's all creative. It's all art and drama and song and story. That's all of it. And I became so disconnected from that because I didn't feel that I was either good enough or that it was acceptable enough. For me, it was almost whimsical to work on those things, and it's taken a huge leap of faith for me to just feel the fear and do it anyway. um, and it's worth it for me because I am actually going on such a huge adventure with it, and that's ultimately what I'm here for. That's what I'm here on the planet for, is to have like crazy adventures. So it's like, yes, this is so obvious and I'm so passionate about it, but it takes a huge amount of guts, and I don't think that I would have been able to step into any of this had I have not become so aware of my ADHD and showing myself that love and care, like, yeah, honoring those parts of myself again.
Yeah, but that comes back to what I was saying earlier. If you don't know, if you don't know you have an ADHD brain and you're getting all these negative messages, why can't you do this? Why aren't you listening? Why did you do so badly in your exams? All you do is internalize that as a bunch of character flaws, which is logs on the fire of your inner critic. Like that's what they are created from. And it does take that moment to kind of go, oh, now I know I operate differently. I know I'm not a rubbish person. I know I'm not lazy. And all the other things that you got told. Then you are able to go, okay, I can do things differently now and learn how to speak to yourself kindly. And as you know, that's not an overnight thing. It hides in all these places, and you've got to weed it out. You've got to weed out those moments where you go, oh, just get on with it, because you're like, well, in 43 years, just get on with it has never worked. So what could we say to ourselves instead? Maybe we could say, are you all right? Is there something you need? Like one real pillar that's helped me with parenting is that notion that all behaviour is communication. So when your child's being a dick, like they're trying to tell you something, they're not just being a dick. But it's the same for us. Like procrastination, for example, especially in the ADHD world, it's so demonized. And I'm like, maybe meet your procrastination and ask it what it's trying to tell you. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you need a break. Maybe you made the task too big and scary. Maybe you're afraid of something. Like, procrastination is not a character flaw, it's a message. And I think so many things, when you're able to understand ADHD, why it makes your brain work differently, what motivates you, how you differ from the norms that you've been taught, then you can meet these things and get curious about them and give yourself some empathy and compassion rather than just you know, the standard stick to beat you with. My favourite one is with people is weeding out shoulds. As soon as I catch anyone saying should, I'm like, should it though? Should you though? Is that real? And yeah, and I don't use the word should in my chats with myself anymore
Yeah.
because that is one of the biggest sticks we beat ourselves with.
Yeah, I catch myself doing it occasionally, but then it's like an instant, like, whoa, no, hang on a minute. But what I would like to sort of chat about a little bit towards this final part of our recording here is what would you suggest or any advice you would give for women who are maybe having these thoughts or starting to see some stuff that's resonating for them and they're thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this is this is a bit real. Because for me it was like it took me a while to fully open that Pandora's box. Like I was starting to see it for a while and I was just like, no, put the lid back on that. I don't think I can cope with that right now because I'm not sure where that's going to lead me or what that's going to mean for me. Like for me, I'll just say quickly before I ask your opinion. For me, and there's a whole chapter on this in my book coming up. It's but about connecting with other people who are going through the same thing. And it's like almost like a regrouping. It's like you mentioned earlier about feeling like you didn't fit in and feeling like an alien. And I think we start to ostracize ourselves from society gradually, gradually, gradually without even realizing that we're doing it. But actually, one thing that's been so amazing for me in coming out, should we say, and really allowing people in to understand that this is how I identify now, it's been this amazing way to connect with other people, and I just feel all this love and support around me now, which I didn't feel before. So for me, that's what it is. That's what I would recommend, is just like, don't be scared to say what's like right there. Just you know what I mean? Like we push it down, we push it down. It's like, can I really say
Yeah.
that about myself? Not sure. Because on the whole, we're just very non-judgmental people, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say that to my clients, like there'll be something they're scared to bring, and I'll be like, honestly, I am 100% unshockable. You can't tell me anything that I haven't done myself or watched someone do or heard. Like, there's just, I'll never judge you for anything that you bring because it's unlikely to be worse than anything I've done myself. And I don't judge my past self anymore, so I'm not going to judge you. But yeah, I totally agree. I think the first step for me was to hyper focus on it and to learn everything I could, read all the books, listen to all the podcasts. I had ADHD coaching, which was so beneficial because it was just those missing puzzle pieces of like, why do you behave in this way? Oh, well, this thing might be playing in. Oh, cool. So this is how I can do it differently. And that's what actually inspired me to train to be an ADHD coach myself. So yeah, education is a big one for me. Just hoover up all the knowledge, listen to people's stories, start to think about, oh, okay, this particular area, where I'm struggling to do a certain thing, if I now know why, maybe I can then accept myself. And I think along with education, acceptance is a big one. It's just letting go of shame, letting go of judging past you, letting go of all the crappy self-talk. And that is a process. It takes some time, but on the other side of that is a completely different life where things don't feel like such a battle all the time. And then, yeah, connecting with people is a massive one. And also just being brave and sharing your story. Much as I don't know many of the people who are parents of kids at my kids' school, I texted the whole WhatsApp group for my year group and just went, by the way, I'm an ADHDer and I've trained as an ADHD coach. If anyone's experiencing stuff with their kids or themselves and they just want a private chat, like, I'm here. And that helped me find my safe people at the school gates, my fellow neurodivergents, and it was amazing. And it made it okay for them to talk about. And I'm now super passionate about talking about it anywhere and everywhere so that I can make it safe for other people to do that. Because when I first started talking about it, people were a bit dismissive and, a bit like, oh, well, we're all a bit ADHD, aren't we? Or, oh, we're all on the spectrum. And I think things have changed a lot, even in the last 2 years. And yeah, the biggest thing for me was getting my ode to ADHD, my dopamine tattoo on my arm. And it's now this amazing conversation starter where people go, oh, I like your tattoo. And I go, it's my ode to ADHD. And they're like, oh, and then it's insert diagnosis story here. and it, yeah, I'm like, oh, subconsciously, there's obviously a reason I got it on the outside of my arm, is because I want to bravely wear the badge and let people know, like, hey, if you want to share a neurodivergent story, come talk to me.
It took me a really, really, really long time to be able to talk openly to people about the fact that I have ADHD, because it does show up so differently for absolutely everybody,
Yeah.
and there is that misconception, or that vibe of like, oh well, we're all a little bit like that, or we're all on the spectrum type thing. And actually it's like it plays down like how much it can be affecting you and your life and the struggles that are real for people. And so yeah, I just want to say, like, if anybody is listening to this and they really want a friendly face and like a really knowledgeable person to talk to about this stuff, who from somebody who is self-diagnosed as well and is really and gets it, then go find Siobhan
Oh.
and have a chat and see if coaching with her is for you. I'm hoping to get some coaching soon through Access to Work and start that journey for myself. And obviously, there's a lot of things that I do to help myself, and one of those things is meditation and movement and kind of really caring for my nervous system in that way. And just to finish up, it'd be lovely to hear kind of like, other than cold water and reconnecting with people and learning about yourself in that way and knowing that you're not on your own, is there anything else that you do for yourself, for your self-care?
Yeah, I prioritize it. I think that's the biggest thing. I make sure it's the first thing I think about before I think about anything else. Sleep is a massive one, so I really invest in my sleep because I have crushing insomnia. So getting up and going to bed at the same time every day. It's boring, but it works. Diet is a big one, like making sure you're getting high protein, high fat in all your meals, especially breakfast and lunch, and avoiding sugar as much as you can. It's just like loads of carbs, loads of refined sugar is just brain death for an ADHD brain. Like it's not great anyway, but I have a super high protein, super high fat, good fats breakfast, and the to not have that sugar crash has been a big thing. Movement, as you mentioned, so I swim in the river, like insert massive list of other benefits here for cold water. But just walks, running, workouts, yeah, just it turns out I need a lot more movement in a day than I ever thought I did. Maybe there is an element of hyperactivity there, but yeah, getting enough movement, daylight, fresh air, being outside, like that's some of the best medicine ever. And it's none of it's sexy, none of it's a silver bullet, but if you work on the basics, even without medication, I think you can improve how you feel on a daily basis, probably at least 50 to 60%. But there are going to be some very boring choices in there, like not drinking anymore, giving up alcohol. Like it's boring on the face of it, but actually what it's added to my life is exponential. So yeah, they might not be they might be conventional things you have to let go of, but once you do, you feel so much better that it becomes a no-brainer.
I think that for me, as you were saying, that huge, great big list of things that you basically, like you said, you put yourself first. And I think that understanding that you have that self-worth and valuing yourself enough to put yourself first, that is almost like the first hurdle. And I think that that is something that I really, really struggled with initially. It's like I wasn't valuing myself in that way. I wasn't placing enough importance on my health and my well-being. It was all about how can I serve everybody else.
Yeah,
I wasn't doing it for myself, and it's like that was never going to be in alignment with me feeling satisfied.
yeah. I
So
think becoming a mum for me, it it forced me to that realization, kicking and screaming. It's like you'll keep burning out unless you start doing this. And it kind of goes against all the messaging around being a mum, but like I got slammed up against the wall of that realization. Like it wasn't a choice almost. It was just you need to start doing this, otherwise you won't survive. Like you don't have a choice. So it was deeply uncomfortable. And it does still go against a lot of the messaging out there, but actually, yeah, it comes back to that idea of serving from the overflow. You can still be there for other people. You can still be the person that you want to be for other people, but you've got to be who you need to be for you before you can do that.
yeah, thank you. I think we're going to end things there. I think that's a really great message, and one of like the main messages that I like to transmit through all of the work that I do in the world. So thank you for talking with me today, and I am going to make sure that links for people to find you go in the show notes here. But if there's anything you just want to say just about how people can quickly find you, yeah, do please share that.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, my coaching website is bigpicturebusinesscoach.com. I hang out on LinkedIn a lot, so you can always add me there, Siobhan Fox. Or, as you very kindly gave me a plug at the beginning, listen to my podcast, the Unconventional Business Podcast. And yeah, I'd just like to echo something you said earlier. If you're listening to this and thinking, is this me? Like, just please know you're not alone. And there are loads of us out here, and it's a very welcoming community once you link up with other people. And yeah, it's it's life changing when you realise you're not on your own, and there are lots of us weirdos out here that can't wait to connect and
Amen to that.
share our stories and share all our weird quirks and realise that maybe we're in the majority. Who knows?
We learn so much from each other. Cheer each other on. Yeah, love
Yeah.
it. Amazing. Thank you, Siobhan.
Thank you.
When we work together in collaboration with each other, helping other women to find their voices and share their stories, it gives permission for everybody else to rise up and do the same. So until next time, sending so much love.
Dandelion, you're a joy to my eyes. Dandelion, you're a joy to my eyes. Oh, your yellow and gold flies through the breeze. Far and wide you spread your seed.
I want to give a big, heartfelt thank you to Laura Julius Cohen for donating so kindly her beautiful Dandelion song to this podcast. Laura is the lead singer-songwriter of Soulbound. Go check them out. I've put links to their socials in the show notes. Laura also loves dandelions, and she loves how far their seeds can travel, just like songs and stories. Again, I'd just like to mention that I really love it when you share, rate and review on whichever podcast station you prefer to listen to. Thank you.